In this video, we'll give you a complete step-by-step guide on how to connect multiple databases, like MySQL and PostgreSQL, using Spring Boot. 1. What is multi-datasource configuration in Spring Boot? Answer. Multi-datasource configuration refers to the setup where a Spring Boot application connects to more than one database at the same time. This allows you to interact with multiple databases, each having its own data source, EntityManager, and TransactionManager. 2. Why do we need multiple data sources in an application? Answer. Common use cases include microservices connecting to multiple legacy and new databases, reporting applications using a read-only reporting database, using different databases, MySQL plus PostgreSQL, in the same project, migrating data between databases. 3. How do you define multiple data sources in Spring Boot? Answer. You define multiple data sources in the application.yml or application.properties with separate prefixes, like spring.datasource.primary, spring.datasource.secondary. Then, you create Java configuration classes for each data source using @configuration, @enableJPA repositories, and define data source, EntityManagerFactory, and TransactionManager beans. 4. Why do we use the @primary annotation? Answer. @primary is used to mark one data source as the default bean when Spring has multiple beans of the same type. Without @primary, Spring would throw a no unique bean definition exception. 5. What annotations are important for multiple data source configurations? Answer. @configuration to define config class, @enableJPA repositories to define which repositories to scan, @primary to set default beans, @bean to define data source, EntityManagerFactory TransactionManager, @configuration properties to bind data source properties from application.yml. 6. What are common pitfalls when configuring multiple data sources? Answer. Forgetting @primary causes Spring to fail at startup. Using the wrong base package in @enableJPA repositories. Misconfigured packages in EntityManagerFactory not pointing to correct entities. Transactions not propagating properly between different databases. 7. Can you share a real-time scenario where multiple data sources are useful? Answer. Example. A banking application can have one primary database, PostgreSQL, for transactions and another secondary database, MySQL, for audit logs. This separation ensures scalability and compliance with audit requirements. 8. How does transaction management work with multiple data sources? Answer. Each data source has its own transaction manager. You must annotate service methods with @TransactionManager equals secondary transaction manager when you want to control which database transaction is active. 9. Is it possible to use Spring Data JPA with multiple data sources? Answer. Yes. Spring Data JPA fully supports multiple data sources by configuring separate repositories for each data source using @enableJPA repositories with different EntityManagerFactory ref and TransactionManager ref. 10. What's the difference between multi-datasource setup and multi-tenancy in Spring Boot? Answer. Multi-datasource connects to different physical databases. Multi-tenancy connects to different schemas or segregates data within a single database for different tenants. 11. If you need to write data to MySQL and read from PostgreSQL, how would you approach it in Spring Boot? Answer. Define MySQL data source as primary for writes. Define PostgreSQL data source as secondary for reads. Use proper repositories mapped to each data source. Use transaction managers accordingly for data consistency. Like, comment and subscribe for more Spring Boot tutorials and interview preparation guides.